For joining us here in Morning Prime. It's another beautiful day. Trusting as always, you've slept easy, woken up well, and you're ready for the day. It's Wednesday. Every Wednesday we have Global Today coming your way, where we take critical analysis of foreign policy, matters diplomacy, geopolitics, and security. And of course, our panelists are already here up and early. We're joined this morning by Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the director at the Horn International Strategic Studies. And of course, we have also with us Ahmed Hashi, who's a global international affairs analyst as well, and Horn of Africa analyst. We have with us the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. This is Professor Peter Kagwanja. And also we have with us as well Dr. Ken Obongi, who is a historian, head of the department also at the University of Nairobi, History and Archaeology. A lot that we have to discuss today as far as the governance of a country is concerned, also regional matters around, of course, East African bloc. And we have also the breakaway of the Confederation of Sahel State from ECOWAS, and also we'll give you the latest on that particular front as well. But for now, let me just give an introductory remarks to a panelist. Then we buckle down to, of course, look at the dailies and what they're holding this morning. Let me just extend a hearty welcome to Ahmed Hashi. Good morning.
Good morning, Debal. I'm delighted to be back again. I missed the show. I missed my colleagues. And while I was away, the country nearly went down the drain. You know, the government listens to us, Debal, while we're all here. And I'm the one who pushes the red buttons for my colleagues to continue pushing the government towards the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Debal, yesterday I saw the political class, the discredited political class, Debal, standing up with our president who is under siege. And I think that, Debal, there are people who are saying, speaking the language and the narrative of low standards, comparing us to Sudan, comparing us to the Sahel, comparing us to the Horn of Africa. It's like a bogey trying to threaten us into peaceful acquiescence. We are not going to do any such thing, Debal. We're going to change Kenya, but we're going to change Kenya through a peaceful, democratic, open, plural system so that we can get rid of corruption, we can get rid of nepotism, we can get rid of these major evils that 80% of the population of Kenya, the Jay-Z, does not give them hope, doesn't give them a future. Debal, we want Kenya to lead. We don't want it to be a low-standard country.
Fantastic. Dr. Hassan Kanenje, good morning.
Good morning, Debal. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yes. I think, save for some of the unfortunate events that led to the loss of lives and the destruction of property, if you pay attention around the world, the Kenyan Gen Z actions have inspired a lot of chatter,
in Africa.
a lot of, not just actually on the African continent, but across. African parliaments are talking about it, international foreign parliaments are talking about it. And I think there is something happening in the country that we need to pay attention to. But also is something happening about young people across the continent, across the global south, that we need to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And I must add, it's not just the global south, but even the global north. Young people are tired, I think, of things as they've always been. And to the extent that they are united, not by their tribes or by their religious affiliations, I think it's something also that is extremely encouraging because I think much of what has bedeviled us as a country has been our return to our ethnic, regional cocoons, anytime we're having a national crisis. But today, of course, the story is very different. And I think we need to pay attention if we want to be able to ride this new revolution. Because if we don't pay attention, we may be consumed by it. And we need to be very careful on how we handle this situation.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Let's hear from Professor Kagwanja.
Well, good morning, Ibrahim.
Good morning to you.
I was kind of, let's say, enthused, delighted by a statement that was issued yesterday, which was fairly assertive by the young generation they requested the old man, the grand old man of the opposition, Raila Odinga, to stay at home and look after his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And they argued that they had always suspected that he is in bed with the ruling elite. They went on to argue that they are the new opposition. And they say they are leaderless, they are tribeless, and they are also partyless. So they don't belong to his party, they don't belong to his leadership, and they don't belong to his tribe. I thought that was really, amazing. Then they actually went on to accuse him of trying to hijack the Gen Z uprising or revolt. And I think one can comfortably say that Kenya is experiencing a new dawn in regard to its opposition. And this is a subject we need to pay attention to, because it is the behavior of the opposition to always seek to be in bed with the government from, I would say, 1992, which has put us where we are. We had a short spell from 1997 to around 2002, when we had what we can call a genuine opposition that was not seeking to be in bed with the government. That changed a little bit in 2007, when Uhuru Kenyatta, as the leader of opposition at that time, joined the government of the day of President Mwai Kibaki. And what we have seen ever since is a situation where we have an opposition by name, but it's a wing of the ruling power at the same time.
We'll come to that. All right, let's hear from Ken Obongi. Daktari, good morning.
Morning, Dibal. Morning, my colleagues, and morning our viewers in Kenya and I think beyond. Very interesting to listen to my colleagues and listen to the country. But I think at noon, to many of us, perhaps because of the too much politics around this, there's a very big conference taking place at the KCB training school in Karen, which is bringing together a number of countries in the Horn of Africa under the banner of the Horn of Africa Environmental Center, coordinated by a big Kenyan NGO called Soralo. And they are talking about matters environment, matters conservation, and how we link it to people's socio-economic lives. I'm glad that Marabu too are in the conference, and many interesting things are emerging that probably will help us understand and deal with global warming. But away from that, just to be in tune with my colleagues here, it's a very interesting time for us to live. The other day, yesterday, I saw us prescribing a political solution to a problem that is not largely political, that is generational. We saw the old political faces speaking the old language, standing outside the old facade of KICC and prescribing what I regard as a wrong solution to a challenge that we have. The challenge we have now is generational. Power is shifting from the old generation and my generation to the generation of our children. They are talking about restoration of their dignity as a people of the African continent, through equality and equity, through viable employment, food security, education, and many other things. So there is a discord in the country.
There's a discord in the country. Interesting. We'll come to those issues as well. But let's just buckle down to see what we have on the dailies this morning before we proceed with the conversation. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard today. Gen Z backlash. No longer at ease. President William Ruto must have thought signing the RBC amendment bill at KICC and with the opposition present will placate the protesters. It angered them more The youth feel those present are the face of what they are fighting, and even the children of the leaders scorned at them. The presence of military guarding the ceremony made matters worse. And you have a story on page 4 and 5, or actually page 5 of the Standard today. Some of the sentiments that were being expressed here, we have Cornelius Rono, a Twitterati there. He says, or is it Exarati right now? The dialogue is between two individuals, William Ruto and Raila Odinga. We refuse to be controlled by selfish politicians who only value their stomachs. Gen Zs and millennials are taking the bull by the horns. Duke Mtambo is saying, political class regrouping to secure their selfish interests through an opposition handshake. But what we must, or what we want to tell Raila Odinga is that those harmless youths didn't die on the streets for senseless dialogues. Raila, who are you? Who are we? You're not our leader, right? That is Duke. We have Jiman at Ukijana saying, we thank Raila for everything he has done for this nation, but this is no longer his battle. Mzee, atulie ama pia yeye tumpe salamu mbili tatu hapa na pale. Then we have Raila Odinga Jr. there. Everybody is an individual, please. Even people with the same exact names as well. You don't know if that is a parody as well. 6 days president announced will be for dialogue through the National Multi-Sectoral Forum. And still in the Standard as well, as radical changes to IBC expected to follow soon. President William Ruto's decision to assent to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024 paved the way for setting up of a new poll body. Gen Z backlash, all right, as radical changes to IBC expected to follow soon. That is how it should be understood. And you can follow this story on page 6 and 7 of the publication today. Entry, the signing into law by President William Ruto has kick-started the rigorous process of appointing new commissioners. It will be instrumental in ending the plight of voters in Banisa constituency and several wards that have to go to a by-election. It will also commence the boundaries delimitation exercise that was supposed to have been concluded by March 2024. New law is here. The vice chairperson of the commission will not automatically become the chairperson whenever a vacancy occurs. IBC commissioners must have 10 years experience in areas of study with IT as one of the key fields. The chairperson of the commission shall be a person who is qualified to hold the office of judge of the Supreme Court. Those are the new laws tucked away with the new IBC that was assented to by the president yesterday. Also remember, you can get all the wiser as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Enterprise Magazine is inside the Standard today. The Daily Nation, a Ruto Raila government? That is a problem question. Politics, president announces 6 days of dialogue as youths reject talks. Handshake 2, President William Ruto and ODM chief Raila Odinga may be planning to form a government of national unity. In scarecrows there, quotes, as the head of state seeks a way out of the current youth-led protest. Meanwhile, the Azimio coalition faces implosion. 4, 5, and 6 is where the story continues. And of course, a related picture as well, where you can see President William Ruto flanked by his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, Azimio leader Raila Odinga, and other National Dialogue Committee members addressing journalists after signing the IBC Amendment Bill 2024 yesterday at KICC in Nairobi. And groundwork laid for appointment of a new look IBC, all that tucked away inside the Daily today. They left me for dead, says abducted student. When Kenya School of Law President Joshua Okayo was thrown out of the boot of a moving vehicle, he found himself lying by Maragua River in Murang'a County. Too weak to move. And this story continues on page 2. Another tells also of abduction and deaths. Also a student from JK Watt was found dumped in a quarry, and this is after he was seen, of course, in Parliament, was abducted at the university and was found dumped in a quarry, and he is dead. Yet we have the government stoutly denying there were no arrests done by them or any abductions. DRC, now Kenya's fastest growing EAC export front. That is a story you can follow on page 20 of the Daily Nation today. How forged DNA papers helped a man dodge child support. Also that story on page 3. Azimio split as Ruto hints at unity government. Not us, oppositions Karua, Kioni, Eugene, Tam move a trap, insist they are not boarding. Raila Odinga's ODM considering working with Kenya Kwanza in new coalition. We shall discuss this. This is on page 4 and 5 of the publication this morning. People Daily, Ruto Raila told off youth voice. There can't be a dialogue with Gen Z without justice or accountability. The government must take full responsibility for deaths of the young protesters. President must acknowledge that his administration killed innocent demonstrators. And you have a story on page 4 of the People Daily today. Moody's lowers Kenya's loan rating after Ruto finance bill flop. And that's a story that you want to follow on page 14 of the business or the People Daily today. 9 killed after Migori mine collapses. That is on page 13. Kenya shuka bei, and this is all about the Moody, of course, rating. Shirika la Moody laonya huenda Kenya ikalemewa kulipa madeni na hivyo itakuwa vigumu kupata mikopo. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Taifa Leo today. Serikali ya muungano yanukia rais akitia saini sheria ya kuunda IBC. That story on page 3. Business Daily, economic backlash widens over finance bill tensions. Moody's downgrades Kenya rating deeper into junk. Bond investors offer just 486.5 million shillings out of 20 billion shillings sought. And you can follow this story on page 2 of the Business Daily today. DRC now Kenya's fastest growing EAC export market. Also capital gains tax hits record 8.38 billion shillings. Also no projects to show for 1 trillion shillings borrowings. The government cannot show projects funded with 1.1 trillion shillings of expensive loans, I should say. It took in 11 and a half years to 2021. An audit has revealed Safaricom overtakes Airtel in SG sites rollout, and shilling extends gain against regional currencies. Let's see what is happening on the region as well. How modern day pastors fleece gullible followers. As in a number of several other countries across Africa, a new breed of fly-by-night religious leaders is emerging in Tanzania and capitalizing on sheer desperation among their followers to amass eye-popping wealth. These modern-day prophets have turned faith into a truly lucrative business, and this is a global phenomenon there. This trend is not unique to Tanzania. It is also prevalent in Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and even in some Western countries. These pastors prophets, apostles use the same tactics of selling anointed items and promising an ending prosperity and success. 50,000 is not uncommon for up to 50,000 people to attend a healing meeting. Followers are usually asked to buy anointed water at 10,000 shillings, a bottle of olive oil at 20,000 shillings, salt 10,000 shillings, and those who need to have a one-on-one with the servant of God should have at least 100,000 shillings. Psychologists' views also are given there. There's a special report in The Citizen and the church in the crosshairs right now of the media. Study identifies trees that can protect crops. That is also inside The Citizen. In Uganda, new government jobs rule. Fire before you hire. Sacred cows. The government has applied brakes on new hiring to fill vacant public slots so that employees likely to be affected, I should say, by the ongoing mergers of agencies can get assured fresh employment. That story is on page 4. Stomach ulcers, symptoms and treatments. You can follow that inside the publication as well. And freedom eludes remanded MPs, as you can see them where they were arraigned on graft charges. And the East Africa this week, winners and losers in Uganda's new oil deal is what is on the front page of the East African this week. And also subdued Ruto crafts painful austerity plan. After facing off with angry taxpayers for weeks, the Kenyan leader on June the 5th announced measures to reduce public expenditure, including scrapping 47 state agencies and holding off hiring of assistant ministers and reducing government legis. Somalia pays $7.8 million for EAC budget support, and Rwanda UK asylum deal dead in water. New PM Starmer now is vowing to scrap Sunak's plan to send migrants to Kigali. This story on page 6 of the East African. China Daily, ecological gains reflect broad shift. That is what is on the front page of the China Daily. And also you have the Time magazine, The Flash, the world's fastest man, Noah Lyles is bringing his speed to game. Noah Lyles there. And you can follow this story inside the latest publication of the Time magazine. As you can see, I am ready, and this is all about Ruto Talks and the Gen Z. But the Gen Z, they can hear none of it as far as the national dialogue is concerned. We'll give you that story as well. Baba, I need analog solutions to obvious issues. This is what Victor has drawn. And is a new government or new government of national unity in the offing? This is a probing question. And that is what Victor has captured today inside the Daily Nation. In the Star, we have, of course, dialogue since the era of Moi, dialogue with Kibaki, dialogue with Uhuru Kenyatta, and now dialogue with President William Ruto. As you can see it here, it's all about the dialogue. We'll give you the greater details momentarily. Now, the process to reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC, has officially kicked off after President William Ruto gave his assent to the IBC Amendment Bill 2024, paving the way for the appointment of a selection panel tasked with the recruitment of new commissioners. This is the first bill processed by Parliament to implement the National Dialogue Committee report in an event attended by leaders from the political divide led by opposition chiefs Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. President Ruto affirmed his commitment to implement the NADCO report, while Odinga called for open dialogue by all stakeholders on the reconstitution of the electoral body. KTN's senior political affairs reporter, Daniel Kariuki should say status off.
Away from the usual place where the president signs bills into law, his official office at State House, and footage shared of the signing of bills,
the Parliament to present these vellum copies before you for your assent.
President William Ruto chose to sign one of the crucial bills at a public place, KICC, in an event broadcasted live.
The House of the Parliament adopted the report.
The president assenting to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC Amendment Bill 2024. After signing, the bills will be stamped into law with the national seal rarely seen in public.
There must be professionalism and integrity as part of the cardinal principles of the men and women who will be charged with the responsibility of overseeing our elections.
The president termed the act as a testament of Kenya's ability to navigate complex and divisive issues that threaten national cohesion. Azimio leader Raila Odinga stressed that the government should prioritize discussions while tackling the nation's pressing problems.
Even as I assent to this bill, I look forward to supporting and facilitating any other outputs of the national consensus that was NADCO to ensure that Kenya moves forward and with as many hands on deck as is possible.
We made it very clear that both you, Mr. President, Mr. Raila Odinga, the Prime Minister, will have to agree on, perhaps most importantly, on who becomes the chair of the new IBC.
You see, the issues which are being raised by our youth, most of them are actually contained in the NADCO report. But if this NADCO report is implemented fully, we'll be able to address all those issues which these young people are raising.
This is the first bill out of the 9 bills that are set to be passed by Parliament from recommendations by the National Dialogue Committee, NADCO. In the new law, the number of members in the selection panel will increase to 9 from 7. They will include 2 people nominated by Parliamentary Service Commission, PSC, and to represent majority and minority sides, 3 members to represent political parties liaison committee, 1 person from the Law Society of Kenya, LSK, 1 person from the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and 2 people nominated by Interreligious Council of Kenya.
The constitution of the IBC is a great step for our democracy.
Assent of this bill not only marks a hallmark in our nation's endeavor to reconstitute a new IBC, but also buttresses the importance of dialogue in our country.
The law, which was signed by President Ruto, expands qualifications for commissioners to include candidates with a background in accounting and information and technology. 8 more bills are expected to be processed to implement NADCO report.
But let me ask my deputy to make a few remarks.
The event also witnessed a breach of protocol that saw Azimio leader Raila Odinga bypass Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and instead invited President Ruto to address, a move rectified by President Ruto, who invited Gachagua to make his remarks. With more than 10 months without the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission commissioners, Kenyans will be awaiting for the gazettement of the selection panel that will kickstart the process of reconstituting the electoral body. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News at the KICC, Nairobi.
So when do we expect new IBC commissioners to take office? That is the burning question. What are the next steps going forward for the selection panel? Our senior political affairs reporter Chris Thairo looks at the remaining legal process and timelines ahead for the selection panel. I'll run you by that story momentarily as we try and put our ducks in a row there. Now, President William Ruto's political was far from over, despite him announcing 6 days of national dialogue starting Monday, July the 15th. Immediately after the announcement by government and opposition politicians, Kenyans online under the now popular Gen Z movement wondered in which capacity Azimio leader Raila Odinga and the president were speaking, maintaining their earlier stand of being troublous and leaderless, as Dalmas Sekali reports. These youthful Kenyans maintained that they were not interested in having dialogue and that all they wanted was for the issues raised to be addressed.
The speakers of both houses of parliament.
A few years ago, this would have been hailed as a show of statesmanship when political leaders across the divide appeared together in a function speaking one common familiar language, national dialogue.
We require now a wider engagement so that people have an opportunity to vomit all that is there in their chest in order that we can be able to find a way forward.
We have yet another opportunity as a country, Kenya being the resilient people we always are, to come together and figure out the future of our country in a manner that makes sure that we address the existential challenges and threats that face our nation.
Not anymore. No sooner had President William Ruto and Azimio Party leader Raila Odinga finished addressing Kenyans, highlighting a new round of talks to end the political stalemate orchestrated by protests led by the Gen Z movement, than social media was awash with anti-dialogue messages, largely from the youthful movement, expressing their displeasure at the current arrangement. Opposition leader Raila Odinga was turned into a punching bag as Kenyans questioned in what capacity will be taking part in the talks, as many distanced themselves from being represented by political quarters. Similar to how any individual acting against the demands of the Gen Z has been treated in the recent past, Odinga's private credentials, including his mobile phone numbers, were paraded on the platform. Under a hashtag, Kenya's Youth Reject Dialogue, Ruto Must Go, one by one, they expressed their dissatisfaction with the current regime, terming Odinga as a tool being used to calm them down. User Hanifa, under her account at Hanifa Safi, shared this strongly worded poster asking Odinga and the political class to stay off their lane, terming their movement as a new opposition. We will not dialogue with our oppressors. We want change, and we want it now, read part of the message. And among these displeased Kenyans, there was a popular name, Raila Odinga Jr., son to opposition chief Raila Odinga. His tweet was as simple as, "Everybody is an individual, please. even people with the same names. End of quote. The vexed youths have maintained that they will not tire to mount pressure against government and will remain leaderless and without any political representation. These as NAK Kenya Party leader Martha Karua and DAP-K leader Eugene Wamalwa also distanced themselves from the impending dialogue, with Wamalwa simply tweeting, and I quote, "I'm not boarding," end of quote. The anti-tax protests that broke out a few weeks ago have culminated into better governance agitation, with youths, among other things, calling for a total overhaul of the current government, a genuine war against corruption, and an audit of the public debt. And now, this development poses a more serious headache for the current regime. Sakali Dalmas, KTN News.
A 150-member multi-sectoral dialogue committee will be set up for national talks on various issues starting next week. The committee will comprise of 50 representatives of the youth, while religious groups, civil society, and political parties will share the remaining number. While announcing the plans after a meeting with opposition leaders, President William Ruto noted that matters of national interest will be given priority, even as Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka said the state's inaction to issues raised in the NADCO report led to the current situation. As Alan Ochanda reports, NAK Kenya leader Martha Karua, Jubilee Secretary General Akioni, and DAP Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa have poured cold water on the meeting, terming it as a trap.
Akin to the handshake when retired President Uhuru Kenyatta turned to the opposition to cool down political temperatures, his successor President William Ruto could be walking in his steps.
Karibuni hapa chini.
Bowing to the pressure mounted by the Gen Zs, the head of state convened a meeting at the Kenyatta International Conference Center, bringing together top government officials and opposition leaders, and gave the country the roadmap towards a national dialogue slated for next week, ostensibly to quell the turmoil witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
We have subsequently had consultations, and we have agreed that to bring the country together for the purposes of working on the issues that are of priority to the people of Kenya.
We have agreed that a dialogue is the way forward out of the crisis that we're having today in our country. We've agreed that we give people an opportunity to be heard, to express themselves, to come out with the grievances which are actually ailing our country today, so that a lasting solution can be found.
The undying Gen Z protests saw the head of public service, Felix Koskei, announce the formation of a 100-member national dialogue committee with 2 representatives of the youth. Cornered, the president, in consultation with the opposition, has opted for a broader and more inclusive multi-sectoral committee with more youth representation.
We will move ahead with the multi-sectoral forum. And we have agreed that a membership of 150 representatives of various stakeholders, 50 of whom shall be young people of Kenya, the other 100 will be representatives of all the other sectors, the religious community, civil society, professional groups, political parties.
Youth actually the majority in our society today, and we want them to be properly heard. And then the several issues, some of them which have been mentioned already, the issue of unemployment, issues of corruption, the issues of ethnicity, debt in our country and debt servicing, and generally management of the economy are issues that we need to talk about.
Last year, the country witnessed Azimio-led demonstrations that led to the formation of the NADCO committee, comprising of members from both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Although they agreed on several issues, the cost of living agenda almost scuttled the process, as Kenya Kwanza insisted it was the government's role to address it. Even as the meeting was going on, other Azimio leaders led by former Odinga presidential running mate Martha Karua were pouring cold water on it, terming it as a trap and seeking to benefit the political elite. On her X-handle, the NARC Kenya party leader said, quote, "Dialogue can only be meaningful if the players have good faith and are guided by the best interest of the people. This is a trap, period." End of quote. On his part, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni, said, quote, "Fellow Kenyans, if you are wondering what just happened at KICC, it's all by design. The guardians of the Kenyan state wield their power relentlessly to ensure its survival against any violent threat that could undermine its very foundation." End of quote. DAPK boss Eugene Wamalwa simply posted, "I am not boarding." Unlike the past, where the government will facilitate participants in such national exercises, they will have to shoulder their own costs. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
All right, as you can see, I am ready. Ruto Talks, and this is the Gen Z. Is it a trap? Right, that is what Stano has put up there. Baba, I need analog solutions to obvious issues. So the brand of politics has changed completely. Are we going with the same script as we can see with the National Dialogue Talks and, of course, the national or the government of national unity? Will it work? It seems there is a seismic shift as far as the brand of politics is concerned. And this is now the Gen Z revolution, which is a big elephant in the room. And also we have the IBC laws now that the president assented to yesterday. Anguka now, the small puppy, says there. And it has been dialogue, guys, since the Moi era, and dialogue since the Kibaki era, and dialogue since the Uhuru Ruto era. And now it seems dialogue is the same conversation as well that is being proffered at the end of the day, as it has been captured by Ozone here in the Star. And also, I found this very interesting, that a company or a corporation like Traco, it has been noted that Kikuyus and Kalenjins are also a majority of the staff there. And this one was scooped somewhere else, that yes, the presidency and the votes as well has been going towards these two tribes as well. And 40 other tribes, you can look at the gaunt man there, emaciated, which are also marginalized as far as the politics of the day is concerned. Is this changing soon? That's a probing question that is being asked as well. And those are some of the issues that we want to discuss this morning. So the brand of politics that we find, it is tribeless, it's leaderless, it's partyless. Where is it going? Farah, Ahmed Ash.
I know Farah Malin is on your mind. And you can ask me about that later on. And I'll give you a very direct answer. Dewal, you know, H.L. Mencken said that all men are fraud. Some, some admit it, and some really don't. I think that there's a political fraud, Debal. Today you can see it laid out at the Jomo Kenyatta International Conference Center, where the political elite of this country have completely misunderstood the politics of this country. And it is not rare that that happens. It is actually part of the tradition of politicians to, when there is a paradigm shift. Debal, you know, I'm a physics buff, and there's something called a singularity, when the gravity is so massive that it destroys space-time. This is what's happening to our country. The very fabrics of our political engagement, Debal, has not been torn apart, it's been torched. Debal, you know, yesterday they buried David Chege, 25-year-old ID specialist. He was the first person, Debal, to be shot by a sniper in front of Parliament. They're claiming that there are about 40 to 45 people who are dead. Debal, we are not yet sure because there's not been In any other decent country, the coroner would stand up and start speaking about deaths in this country. That's the first thing. The second thing is, Debal, is the idea of a national government, Debal, is confusion was confounded. What is the national part of this national government? The national part about today, the politics of this country, is controlled by the General Z. Debal, they're on the newspapers summoning the leaders of this country into meetings and telling them that we're not going to have any dialogue. And the political power of this country, Debal, let me put it clearly, the moral weight of politics in this country, Debal, has shifted. And any political structure, any political system, or any political social formation, Debal, depends on the underground concrete of moral focus. And that is lost. That the government has lost its moral credibility. And once that is lost, Debal, the next thing is the slippery slope towards rebellion all over the country. I put it to you, Debal, that it's very sad that the politics of this country has been completely misjudged. You can see, Debal, the people who are standing at the Jomo Kenyatta International Conference, there has been, Debal. These are the fellows who were gotten from, Debal, the shopkeepers who were selling sugar there in Migori, and the populists from Mombasa. Mr. Odinga, Debal, has completely lost his marbles. I firmly believe that if he doesn't want to destroy his history, he should quietly return and go to his farm in Kisumu. Is it in Bondo or is it in Kisumu? And just let these young people take over this country. Debal, you know, when I first inaugurated the president here, a day after he was I said he was a one-term president. He would never bring the people of this country together. And what would he do? He would ruin the economy. It all has happened. Debal, the argument about that I brought about the government of yes people, by yes people, and for yes people, has now come to pass. Debal, is President Ruto going to build a government in which Mr. Farouk Kibet is the Minister of Internal Security, Mr. Sudi is our Foreign Minister, Mr. Junet becomes the head of government Ministry of Finance? Debal, are we going to have that kind of government in this country? That's no government, Debal. What we need is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And in this way, the General Z are pushing us peacefully, Debal. You saw after the concert the other day, there was no violence because the government thugs were not sent there to go and destroy property, Debal. We need to completely put down the tools of political analysis that we have in this country and try and understand what is happening to this country. And I tell the General Z this, the intellectual elite of this country is with you. We're going to support you. I believe that they're changing this country for the better. We must end corruption, we must end tribalism, and we must end deceit and poverty in this country, and these are the people who are going to do it.
Thank you. Peter Kagwanja.
Well, first and foremost, I think any talk, I emphasize, any talk about government of unity is a sabotage to our constitution.
Correct.
It is not just unconstitutional, it is treasonous, because our constitution is not a parliamentary system where we share power. It is a constitution that gives us two governments side by side. The government in power, which is represented by majority leader, and the government in waiting, which is represented by minority leader. So what we are seeing here is an elite effort to sabotage our constitutional process. And shame on Lyra. He fought for this constitution. Didn't he understand the letter and spirit of that constitution? When we fought, he was our leader, together with Kibaki. Nyang' Nyong'o and Kiraito were our conveners. I and the beautiful lady from Kisii were the co-directors, the senator. So we knew what we were fighting for. We never wanted to have the kind of games we were having at that time when we were talking about nusu mukeka, nusu mkate, nusu cho. There were a lot of nusus there. So in short, what we are saying is that let's not hear again any talk about government of national unity, because we are united. The question is what we are united on. The government and the opposition are united on continuing the status quo. The young generation and those who support them, like myself, are united on a new Kenya. Full stop. So we are united, but we are united on different positions. And you can see members of the opposition, Mother Karua and others, have joined one side of the unity. So, and let's say this, the government and the opposition, as currently constituted, are sweeping through the revolution.
Absolutely correct.
All right.
Very true.
Kanenje, Dr. Kanenje.
Yes.
I'll tweet that.
Of course, at a time of crisis, certain actions need to be taken. There is no doubt that Gen Z, like many Kenyans, are expecting those in power, both in government and opposition, to take measures to respond to their needs. And I think what they're calling for is a government that is leaner, that is cleaner, and that is more inclusive. Because if we were to do that, then a lot of the problems we're facing today, including the kind of waste as well as thievery that are actually going on, I think are going to be managed. And if we are able to do that, then we may have less problems when it comes to our budget and also raising and spending our revenues. Because much of what we collect is either wasted or it is stolen. And I think that's frustrating. Now, to the extent that also this Gen Z can see the kind of opulence that those, especially in power, in the better part of their life, exhibit, to the extent where many children, if you ask them what they want to become, is they want to become an MC or an MP, not because they want to serve, but so they think they can have access to power and steal. I think it's abominable. And I think Gen Zs have realized that the status quo is not sustainable and that change must come and must come today.
Right. Dr. Obong.
Deepa, it is fire around here. Looks like my colleagues are fired up. It's hot in here despite the cold outside. But seems like the situation in our country calls for it. Let's just characterize this and see whether we can deduce a few things. Begin with yesterday, looking at the facade of that great building that is a symbol of this country. Our president looked a bit depressed, if you looked at him very keenly. And I don't envy him in the state that he's in now, a bit besieged and beleaguered. Now, our former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, tried to keep in his old element of trying to outshine the pride group. We say in my language, Debal, that the best way to beat the pride group is to outshine him. You may end up going with the lady at the end of the day if you're lucky. But I think the Prime Minister didn't quite succeed in this as he has done in the previous years. You remember his handshake with Uhuru. Literally, there's a way in which he took over some things. His handshake with Kibaki and the rest. Former DP Kalonzo seemed to be shooting from the hips, and at some point I felt like they have exchanged roles with Raila.
He doesn't want to be there.
He actually played the old Raila that we knew, fighting, coming out, filming, and saying yes, dialogue, but then what? Looks like Honorable Kalonzo is shedding off the old image of being a Melanie and fighting. DP Gachagua was lost in the protocol until finally being invited by the president as a token, just speak. This in my view, state of affairs indicated what I characterized earlier as discord in the nation, a disconnect with the reality. Because while this team in the facade of KICC were actually singing dialogue, and Professor Kawanja took me to my days as an undergraduate student at the university, where the word dialogue changed meaning from what it is, talking to one another, to chapati. Just because one maverick politician, after we went on rampage in 1990 over chapati, he went into a meeting and listened to everybody saying, you don't have to beat the students, but what they need is dialogue. And in the previous day, this great politician had heard that the students went on strike because there was no chapati in their meal. So he thought dialogue is actually chapati in English. And then he rose up and said, Mtukufu Rais, hawa watoto siwapatie dialogue mingi wakule vizuri. So chapati changed its name from chapati to dialogue in my days in the university. So you know, it brings back those old dialogue.
Indeed.
But our children are really not interested. And as I said in another forum the other day, is that we are not listening to them. And if we are listening, we are actually hearing what we want to hear. It is not dialogue they want. They want a break from our history.
Very well said.
And Professor Kawanja said earlier that we started losing opposition, I think, in the 90s. But it goes even much further back. I have the benefit of being a historian here. From 1963, Prof, the days of Kanu and Kadu, we lost the opposition because they all crossed over and joined government. By 1965, we did not have an opposition in this country, and the politician Martin Sukuku remained in the lonely benches of the opposition until 1965, when he finally followed Moi Ngala into government, and Kenya became a republic.
Right.
In 1969, just a bit, KANU and KPU, and things fizzled out. Then in the 90s, 92 particular, we had KANU and Foda Sili. 97, KANU and DP. 2007, PNU and Adodia. We have never, if you ask me, had a quite serious opposition in this country. What we have had is something fake and fickle and self-seeking leaders who finally go into some kind of talk, and they come out with something to keep them them going.
I can see my music is up. Yeah, can I just
urge is let's listen to our children and hear what they are saying, not what we want to hear.
All right, and of course, we want some few minutes past 7. We want to take a short break. When we circle back, we plumb deeper into this and ask the question, is Raila also sensing defeat on the AUC quest that now is warming up to a national government of national unity? What is happening? Something has shifted.
Big time.
Are there, what do we call it? The tectonic shifts that now the plates actually they're shifting, and that's why it's coming back home. And also the political tone and tenor has changed completely. I want to hear from you. I didn't get it quite clearly. If the brand of politics moving forward will change completely, and just as they are putting it, are they using the analog situations to a digital, advent and a digital phenomenon right now? We take a short break. You're watching Global Today here on Morning Prime. When we circle back, of course, we shall also pick up a lot of issues around our region and the world as well.